Hear ye, hear ye. It is our honor to welcome you to the Kingmaker Podcast.
Well, welcome back to the Kingmaker Podcast. It has been way too long. Alejandro, how's life, man?
Hey, what's up? It's been a little bit stressful. For a while there, I had to take a break because it got too exciting. I couldn't handle all of it. What about you?
Busy as always. We have 30 people showing up at the house here in about 2 hours. So, yeah, getting ready to have some fun today.
Well, I guess before that madness, at least you have the chance to calm down and get to learn this new protocol with me.
Yeah, so I think the term that's being kicked around crypto Twitter everywhere is real yield, right? That's what I see everybody talking about. That's the narrative right now.
Yeah, basically, because back in DeFi summer, everything was just emissions. I guess people finally learned, like, oh shit, it's actually good to be paid in money for once.
Why? I want to be paid in hopes and dreams.
I know, like, hopes and dreams are really nice, but I can't pay my rent with that, sadly.
But also, I like Tetra dump on me. Isn't that going on right now too?
Honestly, I haven't been keeping track with that.
Okay,
Like,
fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we have somewhat departure from some of the groups we've been talking to. We've had a lot of Arbitrum folks. We've had a little season 2 action, talking to some folks, Pyrex and the folks at Aladdin DAO on updates. But this one's different. This one is a combination of real world, easy to say, and crypto. So I'd like to welcome Walker from LandX and give us the elevator pitch. What in the world is LandX, and what is real yield in your world?
Thanks, guys, for having me. Yes, this word, the real yield, was kicked around, so we kind of elevated that a little bit. So we're real yield. So it's real yield.
Yield
Um,
squared.
yeah, yield square, real squared yield. Um, so um, our stuff comes from real farmland. So we actually collect real farmland yield, and we pass it on to the folks on chain through something that we call a perpetual commodities bonds protocol. And that's built around Ethereum, that's built around ERC20. There's some NFT components there as well, but it's basically a protocol that allows the farmers to capitalize their future yield, and it allows investors to tap into that future yield through purchasing of our perpetual uh, instrument called X tokens. So one X token equals 1 kilogram of yield per year. So if you buy one X corn, you'll receive 1 kilogram of corn per year. So it's very simple.
Very simple, but extremely complicated, I would say. First, from like just a base layer protocol standpoint, Solidity, not Viper, as far as coding. What's sort of the basis for your protocol? Is there any other protocols that you looked at to write the code, or where does it start?
Uh, well, it's actually started from us looking at um, the farmland as a very undervalued and ignored asset class by most investors, both in DeFi and also in the TradFi space. So there's only a few people that have exposure to farmland, and it's been a tremendous asset class over the past 20, 30 years, sort of beating the inflation by a couple of percentage points over a mid to long term periods all the time. So uh, I'm not sure if you know, guys, Bill Gates is the single largest
Yeah, I was going to
farmland
say
owner in
that
the US.
he's buying up the United
He's
States.
buying it up. Yeah, absolutely. So he's
Yeah.
buying it there. China is buying it in Eastern Europe. Um, Saudi Arabia is buying it in Eastern Europe. So there's a lot of activity that goes on in farmland, and it sort of goes sort of under the radars a little bit, but it's a tremendous asset class because what it produces is a commodity that always will be needed. So there's not going to be a situation where you won't need to eat, where you're going to be printing your your food. So hopefully not very soon. So you're going to feed sort of ever-growing population, and you have a limited amount of farmland available. There's 1.5 billion hectares of farmland available, and there's not going to be any more of it. And the population grows, so naturally, you sort of come to the situation where the narrative of the food crisis becomes more and more um, serious. And with all the climate sort of change stuff that goes around, you understand that food is not going to be cheaper in 5 years than it is now. So ultimately, as an inflation hedge and as something that is non-correlated with your core core investment classes like stocks and real estate or crypto, um, uh, farmland and farmland sort of derivative products are a tremendously efficient asset to diversify your portfolio. So our goal is to have X token in every wallet in 3 to 5 years. So there is a lot of activity that goes on around onboarding of new farmlands. We have a good pipeline of the farmlands that have committed already their future yields to the platform. So now we're kind of building out the platform and sort of getting the message out there that look, folks, there's another way how you can earn money in a safer way, how you can diversify away from all these crypto risks. I mean, I looked at what's going on today in the stock market. I don't really look that much because what we do is not really correlated with all that mayhem
Right.
that goes around in crypto. So whenever Bitcoin drops 15%, it doesn't really affect us in any way.
Gotcha.
We're sort of more pegged to the price action of the commodities, and commodities themselves and the commodity derivative products, they make up about 5% of TradFi derivatives trading, which is trillions of dollars a month. There's absolutely zero of that on chain. So we're
Okay.
the only
Well,
protocol that's doing
let
that
me
on
let me
chain.
pause you real quick,
Sure.
just to catch up. So
Yeah,
I'm still trying to wrap my brain around this.
no
So
worries.
first off, are you going to get Bill Gates involved with this protocol?
Yeah. What's
I
his
mean, you're
what's
definitely
his
gonna
uh
get.
what's his
We'll t-
take on crypto? Actually, I haven't heard because I think that once these guys, like I think once Warren Buffett hears about the crypto in a version of LandX, he's gonna say, well, that's finally something that I can relate to. That's
yeah,
finally something that has
the
some meaning.
Oracle of
That's
Omaha. He's in
well,
Cornland.
yeah, he's right there. And like we have an early access application form, and
Okay. Well, we'll
uh,
tweet at him after we record this. We put
yeah,
this pod out.
yes,
We'll tweet
absolutely.
at
Tweet at
Warren
him. And
Buffett. We'll tweet at
yeah,
Bill Gates.
sir,
Okay.
sir, yes, we're happy to, we're happy to tell you more.
So all right. So again, bottom line, you have somebody wants to get on board. So this is how I sort of see the moving parts.
Mm,
You have the investors, probably more retail at this point, maybe not institutional, but you have those folks who want to hedge and add another asset class to their investment portfolio. You have the protocol, which to me seems like there has to be a lot of trust involved because the protocol is going to be onboarding farmers from around the world to provide this actual real crop yield
mm.
to support this protocol. So let's start here. How can we trust this protocol with all the hacks, all the stuff that's gone on in crypto? How can we trust you to do what you say you're going to do and onboard real farmers without like everybody being doxxed and it being a transparent type protocol?
Okay, so this is probably the best question I've heard because that's the best answer I've heard as well. So when you're looking at trust, you're looking at the trust that doesn't need any trust. So all you got to do is pull up a rentalfoundations.sol smart contract. Its address is public, and have a look at how much funds is there, and have a look at the trajectory of these funds. Every yield, so the yield that the farmer pays for the financing that he gets is prepaid in advance. we take 12-month security, and we request the first year upfront payment. So we have a 24 months initial runway of every single investment that that is sort of brought on chain. So you go to that smart contract, you look at the funds that are sitting there in USDC, and that's what you claim against. You don't need to know more. But if you want to know more, you can dig deeper
Real
to
quick,
this.
how do we trust the farmers that they're not going to just take the money and run though? Like
Right, because the
who's there to
farmer, okay,
verify?
so the farmer takes the money and he gives his land as a collateral, which is registered, that you can view on chain as well. So you can view the actual document of a collateral that is being made out to LandX. And if he doesn't pay, we take his land. If we take his land, we give it to the next farmer for $1 because all we need is somebody to maintain that obligation to pay that crop share. And the crop share is maxed at what we call a maximum allowable crop share, and that's a protocol um, uh, um, sort of function that is being voted by DAO. So the crop share, maximum allowable crop share that a farmer can tokenize is somewhere between 8 to sort of 12%. So he can't say I'll tokenize 50% of my yield. We'll say no, sorry. The maximum for your region, for your type of farmland is, let's say, 11%. So that you can tokenize. So now the farmer tokenizes his 11%. We convert that into the ERC20 token. So we give them an NFT for that, right? Um, so that NFT holds all the terms, his land, the geographical location, how much yield he promises us to pay. There's a legal contract under that. Legal contract gets registered, um, and it's completely fully enforceable. So with this NFT, he then deposits that into a smart contract and gets a bunch of X tokens. So so then he goes to the market and he sells these X tokens. So if it's a big amount, it's an OTC deal. If it's a smaller amount, then he goes into the Uniswap where we provide liquidity, and he swaps it for US dollars that he can then go and spend
Okay,
how he
so
wants.
I want to keep digging more. So
Yeah, yeah,
they can up to 12% of their yield they can tokenize.
yeah.
But if they default, you're taking 12% of their land or
No,
the
no, no. We're
whole.
taking the land. We're taking the land.
So what's the legal process to do that? Because
We give him
you
the
know,
money. He gives us the land as a collateral for a loan. So we give him a perpetual loan. In some geographies, it's a 49 rolling over loan, but it's existing legal rails, and that's what you should like about LandX. While you're looking at other real world asset protocols that are trying to bring ownership of the asset on chain and say, if you buy this NFT, you'll own this apartment. Well, you won't, because you still got to register the apartment. So why do you need NFT for? In our case, it's completely different. Um, the NFT is a mechanical instrument for the farmer to get the X tokens that he can sell. But what happens under the bonnet is a legal contract where the land has been used as a collateral for his promise to pay us the part of his harvest. It's a very simple transaction. That kind of a legal framework is available in 90% of the world. So, and it's fully enforceable. So if he doesn't pay, we take his land. So it's that simple. It doesn't have to go to. So in most of the countries in the world, it doesn't even have to go through the court.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, here in the States, if somebody chooses not to pay their rent and just wants to stay there, it would take months or years to evict somebody.
Well, it
So I was
depends. I
just
mean, if
curious
he,
how that works.
it's if a sort of commercial loan and that land is used as a collateral, then no, it's not going to take you months or years. Of course, it's if a residential tenant in the apartment, it's going to take a while to evict him because of all the sort of social framework that's built on top of it. But if it's a commercial deal, yes, that's a couple of days and he's out. So it's not going to be anything. But if
See,
he
if
doesn't
if
pay,
you
it's
give the
clear.
land back to the protocol holders, then Bill Gates definitely will get involved.
So what happens is that we don't have to actually sell that land. All we have to do is find that farmer who wants to take that obligation, and we can give that land to him for $1. And because that obligation is not massive, we've tokenized only, let's say, 10, 12% of the yield. Any farmer who is farming around that area is going to be happy to take that land because for him it's just economies of scale for $1. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Wait,
Alahan,
so
you have any
yeah.
questions on that?
Yeah. Okay, so I mainly focus on in stocks and crypto since I first like got into investing. So all this stuff is new to me. Okay, so the financial incentive for the farmers is that since you're only taking 12%, like the 12% of the yield, my understanding their incentive is like a perpetual loan that you guys provide, and from what I'm understanding, they get a portion of the yield as well, or am I
No.
misunderstanding something?
Yes, you are. So what he gets is a bag of money. So he gets X tokens, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these X tokens are liquid, right?
Yes.
So he can go and sell these X tokens and use the money how he wants to use them. If he wants to get out of this loan, he just needs to buy these X tokens that were initially given to him, right? And he needs to
Yeah.
buy out his NFT from a smart contract. That's it. That's all he has to do. And then he has no obligation to pay any more rent. Okay, so he can
Okay.
get in and out at any time. It's flexible. And the most important thing, so if you put yourself in the shoes of a farmer somewhere in Brazil, where he needs to take a loan in real's interest rates that he's going to get from his local bank would be probably 8 to 12%. He's going to grow soybeans that is traded in US dollars. And now imagine a situation where Brazilian real goes up against the US dollar and the soybean goes down. Yes, in US dollar terms. Now he's got a big problem on his hands. Now, that's
I
one problem. The
okay.
second problem is that the loan that he gets from the bank is maximum 5 years. So he needs to pay principal and interest in these 5 years. He wants to put an irrigation system. That's 150 grand, for example. That 150 grand is not going to pay him 25, 20, 25% a year added yield. So, I mean, he's going to probably depreciate it over 10, 15 years. He can't afford that. So he can't take the money from a bank to build irrigation system. But what he can do is he can buy. I mean, he can get the sort of perp loan from LandX. That he can do because he doesn't have to pay it back ever. All he needs to do is keep on paying his small crop share. Irrigation system will give him probably 15% extra harvest. So he gets a free irrigation system.
That's actually interesting. Okay, so they get access
And
to that.
and just one more thing, sorry.
Yeah.
And he gets no exposure to the currency risk, and he gets no exposure to the commodity risk. He knows how much corn he grows, and he knows how much he needs to pay. So that's a lot better proposition for a farmer than what he's getting now, right? Because he's not
Yeah.
exposed.
Okay.
His risk. He's not a trader. He doesn't want to be exposed to currency risk. I mean, he's not a he's not a currency trader. He's not a commodities trader either. Like he's not a. I mean, he's a farmer. He grows crop and he sells crop. So he goes crop. He takes a part of that crop and he gives it for the for the funds that we've extended to him. So it's a good
Okay.
proposition for him. And for investor, it's also incredible proposition because one of the things that we do is we have now early access applications. So if the folks are hearing that, they can go to our Discord, find it in the one of the channels, fill in the application form. And there's a question: what brought you to LandX? And one guy says, "What brought me to LandX is the fact that I can invest in real business without lifting my butt off the chair." And I really liked it because that's exactly what it is. You're really investing in real business and you're not lifting your butt off the chair. And it's on chain. And the fact that it's on chain makes it completely transparent. So you see the whole thing from a farmer's lien to every yield that has been paid or unpaid for every NFT, for every weather condition. We run meteo, uh, geospatial imagery analysis. So you have the vegetation indexes if you want to go deeper. And there's a lot more to the platform than just buy X tokens and get the yield. So we're building a big, massive ecosystem because our goal is to bring at least a third of the global farmland into this ecosystem because then this farmland will have liquidity. And if the farmland will get liquidity, then we're going to solve our problems with soil erosion. We're going to solve our problems with food crisis. We're going to solve a lot of problems because the money will flow into this asset class that at the moment isn't flowing into. And that's why I guess Bill Gates is the only guy who's there out there shopping.
Right. So how are you educating the farmers on crypto? Like how are you onboarding them so they know how to mess with a DeFi wallet and NFTs, etc.
100%, because this is really complicated for most people as it is at this moment.
It is, absolutely. And we have a layer that sits between the farmer and the protocol. It's called a validator. So a validator is a person or a structure that takes on the responsibility of selling the financial product to the farmer. They know the farmers, they have a history of relationship with them. In some countries, these are co-ops, so farmer co-ops that farmers trust and they know them. So we're using them as a channel to reach out to the farmers. And the message to the farmer is quite simple. Look, you have to promise a part of your future yield in exchange for a lump sum of money up front. That's all they need to know. Everything else is managed by farmer, validator, and LandX through a multi-sig wallet. So it's not something that they need to go out there and do sort of permissionless and with a MetaMask and go into Uniswap pools and start selling X tokens. This is all managed. So it's a managed operation at the moment.
So this feels a little bit like Axie Infinity in the Philippines, where people were being onboarded and educated and brought through groups.
No, come on. Not at all.
Not at all.
Oh, of course not. No, of
No,
course not.
yeah, because with Axie Infinity,
Oh,
they relied on new entries in order to sustain the
of
ecosystem. Here,
course.
technically, they can if they
No, no,
have
no.
10
I just
farmers.
mean from the education standpoint, where you have like
Uh,
go-betweens who are reaching
Oh,
out to
okay.
well,
communities.
you have to have something that's going to be centralizing the function of the legal and economic framework in Brazil. I'm not in Brazil. Our staff is not in Brazil. So we got to have somebody in Brazil. So we may as well have there somebody in Brazil who's incentivized to do a good job. So he's incentivized to bring out the
Absolutely.
quality
Yep.
farmland. He's incentivized to make sure that the farmers are paying their rent on time. So later, the validator will have to stack um, uh, LandX governance tokens in order to become a validator. So, so if he's staking LandX LNDX tokens, he's a validator. Whenever his farmer doesn't pay rent, his stake is at risk. That's how it's going to be, and
Yeah, that
that's
makes sense.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how we can kind of get the volume into this thing going. I mean, we have now about 50,000 hectares of farmland that we can onboard, which has been vetted, which has been sort of docked and everything. Um, that's about 350 million US dollars, and that's just a that's just a tiny drop in the ocean of what can be done. So for us to go as a as a big project, we need to think in terms of building systems and in terms of having a global outreach. And that's why we have this layer of validators. We can't just put a website and say,
Yeah. So,
if you're a
so
farmer, just register.
people love stories. People love narratives. Is
Yeah.
there any potential opportunities to share some of the stories of the farmers and the validators? Again, connecting the real world to crypto, so we can see this in
There's a
action.
ton of stories. Yeah. So there's a farmer in Brazil, yeah, whom we're working with now to onboard him, and he's very, very entrepreneurial. And so he says, okay, so I've got this 300 hectares of land in Mato Grosso province, and I'm gonna bring it to the platform. I'm gonna get a bunch of X tokens, so I'm gonna get a bunch of money. Can I then use this money to go to Paraguay and buy land there to then onboard that land in Paraguay, get the X tokens for Paraguayan land, and then buy back my X tokens for my Brazilian land? This is brilliant.
Looping. He's
This is
looping
brilliant.
real yield.
This is brilliant. No, what he's doing is he's leveraging his farmland to expand his business in Paraguay.
Right.
And he can't do that without LandX. And it's so easy to do with LandX. Like you can't get a loan in Brazil to go buy a land in Paraguay. We don't care what you do with that money, so long as you're paying rent. So if he finds a comparable land in Paraguay that pays the same yield, to us it's all the same. And this is one of the very interesting and I think important sort of takeaways from what we're building. Um, while there is, and we didn't come to that by accident. So that sort of took us a year and a lot of money to realize that. There's a big difference between trying to sort of tokenize ownership of an asset and bring that on chain and say that's how we started. We build an open sea for NFTs that are selling farmland. So you can buy, an NFT which represents a farmland in Brazil. That's not working because buying the NFT doesn't give you anything in terms of this land ownership. So what we thought is that, well, one thing is ownership of an asset, and the other thing is ownership of the economic essence of that asset, if you think about it. So instead of owning an asset, you can take the economic soul of that asset and you can tokenize it. So what's the economic soul of farmland? Why would you buy farmland? What is it good for? Well, it's good because you can rent it out and it can pay you rent. That's what it's good for. So you can sell that, and ownership of the farmland can stay where it stays now. And you don't need to do anything with the ownership. And by doing that, you basically, instead of selling the apartment on chain, you're selling the rent of the apartment on chain, and you're using apartment as a collateral to show that you can actually sort of provide that rent. And
Yeah,
that's,
that's
I think,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that more protocols will start looking at doing that because while we're waiting for the legal framework to sort of cater for the NFTs and show us how we can buy an NFT and that will represent ownership of some real world asset, that's the way to do it. That's
So
the way how you can
tokenizing
actually
revenue
do it.
stream essentially is what you're doing.
Exactly, exactly, and using the asset as a collateral to sort of support that revenue stream. And the implications of that for farmland are tremendous. Farmland at the moment has, or the price of the farmland has no correlation or very little correlation with its productive ability. So the same farmland in Romania and in Germany might have 4 or 5x price difference, and it's only a couple of 100 kilometers away from each other. Why is that? So you're looking at various factors that are affecting these markets that are outside of the market economic system. These are administrative, political controls, subsidies, all sorts of different hurdles that you have to overtake, restrictions on foreign land ownerships, and all that nonsense that goes into price formation of the farmlands. And now we're left in a situation where farmland, the global farmland market, 1.5 billion hectares of farmland in the world, is valued as much probably as a Tesla and Apple stock combined. That's all. Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's yeah,
Like this is
way
insane.
undervalued.
This
Right.
is insane. This is insane. Like really, like all the farmland in the world that feeds 8 billion people and is going to feed 12 and 15 billion people soon is worth as much as Apple and Tesla stock. So there's something wrong.
Yeah, I yes, definitely seeing the value proposition here. So you've mentioned a few different countries. What is the footprint currently for LandX?
Uh, well, it's Eastern Europe, and it's Latin America, and we're looking at Southeast Asia.
Okay.
So
Sorry, my voice.
the yeah, so sorry. The I guess the the most value that you can extract out of LandX mechanic is where your land is undervalued compared to world's averages. So if a world average would be roughly around, let's say, 5,000 um, 5,000 US dollars per hectare. So if you can't get that price, well, I mean, it's not exactly correct because they have sort of different yields and whatnot, but it sort of takes about 3,000 euro on average to produce 1 ton of wheat, right?
Okay.
So if you're looking at that sort of correlation, then you you can find areas where that land is undervalued, and usually these areas where the financing is not readily available, because if there was available financing, then there would be liquidity in the market, and then the price would be higher. So these things are very related. So that's why LandX has these opportunities, in these pockets around the world. Like for example, there's not much that we can do in Poland, but there's a lot that we can do in Serbia. There's not much that we can do in Holland, but there's a lot that we can do in Romania. So these are kind of things that we're trying to get into as quickly as possible.
Okay, so yeah, so that's what I when he was talking about regions, that's what I was gonna ask, but you kind of answered it. So you're so right now you're focusing on these areas of the globe where they don't have the financing available because it'll be like the easiest to like convince and onboard because they don't have it readily available to them. But so like over time, does that mean you're gonna like focus on other areas and like announce it because you're only focusing on these like specific areas of the globe,
No, I mean we're
or
open
like
to
anyone can?
yeah, I mean we're open to do it anywhere. It's just a question of setting up a validator structure in the country. So if we want to do it in Holland, where the land is 40,000, 50,000 euro a hectare, sure, like if there's a validator who wants to, who wants to set up there and sell LandX financial product, it's going to be awesome because all the legal mechanics there are so simple. Um,
Okay.
but for us, it's really about delivering value to the farmers, and farmers get that value whenever we solve two problems. One is accessibility of the finance, and the second is risk profile of the finance that's being offered. So if we can improve the accessibility and reduce the risk profile, then we're delivering value. And that's when I think the farmers are sort of responding well to this. If we go to a country where there's plenty of different formats of financing available, there's a buy and lease back arrangements that they can go with. There's loans that are subsidized. There's all sorts of different things. Then they're probably going to look at that and say, well, that doesn't make too much sense to us, unless we want to, experiment or play with it. But the farmer can also like one thing that also you asked me for some stories. So one farmer told us in Europe, he said, "Look, I don't know what to to grow next year. So it's going to be either wheat or corn on that field. But what if I grow corn, but I buy, so I have a bit of money, so I buy the X tokens, X wheat tokens. So X wheat is going to give me yield in wheat, and I'm going to grow corn. So it's like I'm hedging, right?
Okay.
So he's hedging, so he's using X tokens to hedge his choice of what he's going to grow. And I thought that's brilliant. Absolutely, absolutely brilliant.
That is fascinating. So you're mentioning the X tokens. How do they maintain peg with the commodities that they're supposed to track?
Right.
What's
So
the
they don't.
mechanism
So
there?
right. So the X token is a bond, right? So when you buy the X token, you're buying the right to collect 1 kilogram of commodity per year. So that kilogram of commodity is paid out to you in the C token, and the C token is pegged to the commodity through an oracle. So you're getting, um, let me simplify that. So you have 100 X tokens, X soy tokens. You're staking them for a year. In a year, you're going to have 100 C tokens in your pool that you can claim. When you claim the C tokens, every C token, every C soy is equal to 1 kilogram of soy as it's traded on the Chicago Board of Trade. Now you take the C tokens to to a, to a LandX treasury, and we give you USDC. Where does this USDC come from? It's coming from the yield from a smart contract that that yield was deposited into by the farmers. That's all. It's a very simple mechanic.
Okay, so farmer pays the rent, goes into the treasury. You're not
Now it
worried
goes
about
into a
the
smart
peg.
contract. Yeah,
Yep, through
yeah,
the smart contract,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
you can cash in your C tokens
Correct.
for what it actually is on the Chicago Board of Trade.
Yes, at that point in time. So you can cash your C tokens every day, every week. You can invest in X Basket. X Basket is a self-compounding vault where you as an investor would buy the X Basket, which will distribute your investment in equal proportions across 4 tokens, and then it will start collecting yield and buying more of the X tokens. So selling C tokens, buying X tokens, selling X tokens, buying C. Yeah. So then when you come to claim your X basket, you're going to get more X tokens back than what you've invested initially because the compounding happened for you. So this is a very cool product because then you can take that and you can leverage that on the DEX platform somewhere. So we're obviously integrating as heavily and as aggressively as we can with various sort of protocols and platforms that will allow to sort of take the X basket and use it as a collateral to then mint either stable coins or borrow ETH or do whatever.
Okay. Okay, so this is
So
really interesting because you're provided they could get multiple layers of yield.
yeah.
Like they have the possibility
Yield
to,
cubed.
basically,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's the same yield. It's not really cute, but what they can do is they can leverage. So if you want to leverage, then you take X basket, right? You borrow, then you go and buy more X basket. But we're obviously it's not a financial advice. We don't know what the price sort of motion of X basket will be. Will it be driven by the price of underlying commodity? Will it be driven by the price of Bitcoin? We don't know what X basket mechanics will be. What we know is that what you're getting as a yield is a commodity. It's food security narrative. That's what XBasket I think is. It's your the most direct exposure to food security narrative, and it's the most direct exposure to and the most close economic exposure to ownership of the farmland that you can get on chain or off chain.
So this is way more fascinating than I thought it was going to be, Walker.
Thank you, thank you.
And I'm starting to get less skeptical. But again, my concerns going into this conversation was really trying to understand how, where is the potential rug. So let me ask you that: where's the
Rug.
potential rug in this?
Well, the rug is, I guess, if there's a regulatory uncertainty around in certain areas of the world, and what we're doing, so we're not advertising our services to the U.S. investors, of course. We're not working with the U.S. investors. SEC is pretty sort of aggressive on anything that is yield bearing, and I think that they would sort of request a lot of things from us if we were to do that sort of stuff in the U.S. Um, we're not sure how sort of the X tokens are sort of permissionless tokens, so the farmer can sell them anywhere. We're not really sort of having any impact on how the farmer sells these X tokens. They have a market on a decentralized exchange, so they're tradable in Uniswap. There's liquidity on Uniswap, so um, I mean that's one of the sort of challenges. But I think as as this whole sort of DeFi ecosystem evolves and as more protocols are bringing real world assets on chain, I think the regulatory framework will also start looking differently at what is the value proposition of blockchain. And I think that LandX really opens up that sort of that Pandora's box of saying, look, you can do real business on blockchain in a transparent way that is sort of um, completely transparent. And I think the transparency here is the main word, that you don't really need to trust anyone because you can see all these numbers on chain. You just look at what is the rental foundation dot sol, how many USDC is in it. And if you see that tomorrow there's less USDC than there is today, and that happened for 5 consecutive days, then you're thinking, okay, well, no one's putting any money in, and the money is coming out. But if your pool is growing and you're protected and you audited, so you have audits on your smart contract security, then I don't think that there's an issue there. Um, there's probably so your question, where's the potential rug? So um, we don't know what liquidity for the X tokens would look like in these liquidity pools in a year or 2 years time. But let's say there is some crazy investor without naming names, but let's say that somebody's not happy. So he's So he was buying these X tokens for a long time at the market rate, and he's accumulated a substantial amount of these X tokens. And liquidity in the Uniswap pool is growing, but not at a speed that he can crash it. For example, with a couple of big transactions. So that's probably where that sort of liquidity risk might be, but then it's counterintuitive, and this is an action that is clearly is not going to sort of lead to anybody benefiting from it. It's not like rugging on Luna, for
Right.
example.
So in that would just be on the X token because the C token would still be pegged
Oh, it
to
doesn't matter. Yeah,
right.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah. So it's just that if you're holding these X tokens and then suddenly somebody dropped the price, but immediately their APR. So the moment the price drops, the APR skyrockets. So at the moment, we're seeding liquidity at the level of about between 5 and 7% APR. So you will be receiving. Okay, so think about it like this: a kilogram of soy, let's say, costs 60 cents. Okay, now so you can buy a kilogram of soybeans on the market for 60 cents. How much do you want to pay to get 60 cents a year? Right? So if you're happy to get your investment back in 20 years, in other words, you're happy with a 5% return, you'll pay $12 for it, right? So you're investing $12 and you're getting 60 cents a year. That's your 5% per annum return on your $12. But you also understand that soybean will go up in price over this period of time if you have a medium to long term horizon, because that's one of the sort of most important protein carrying products in it's a staple in the food basket of so many countries. So you think that the soybeans will go up, so you're going to be receiving yield that is growing in value, yeah, versus US dollars. So how do you price
Right.
that? So how the investors will price the X token, we don't know. But let's say somebody, drops a whole bunch of X tokens on the market, and suddenly the X token is worth $3. So now you're investing $3 to get 60 cents a year. So how much are you? Um, so what's your APR now? So you so 60 cents. So
It's better, but way too complicated math.
what do you mean complicated? So you're investing three
No, I'm
bucks,
just kidding. I'm being facetious.
right? Okay, so it's 20%, right? So 20% APR now. So suddenly, when when your X token drops to $3, you're getting 20% APR because you're still getting that yield. The yield is still a kilogram of soy, right? So now when you go to LandX.fi and you look at the price of X token and you see, oh, okay, it's now 20% APR. It's now $3. Okay, I'm gonna ape in. That's a good bloody price to get in if you're getting 20%. So you're buying a supply of, a constant permanent supply of a commodity that grows in price over beats inflation, and you're getting that with a 20% APR on top. That's a ridiculously good deal. So
Right.
I don't think that that will happen.
Right.
But if that happens, then this is the reaction that I guess the investor will have. That's a great opportunity. Um,
Makes sense. So I just have a couple last questions, but Alejandro, I wanted to give you a chance to fire off any final questions you had.
Yeah, so he answered the regulatory risk, so they're gonna yeah, like he said, like they wouldn't be focusing in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. But like one thing I wanted to go into is that almost every protocol has a token. Um, so I wanted, just in case, I don't know if you guys have a token. If you don't or you do, correct me. But how have you guys thought of it? And if so, how would the token accrue to the
mm.
stakeholders?
So the token is there.
Revenue.
Well, it's not there yet, but it will be there. So it's called LandX token. LandX governance token gives the token holders the participation in LandX DAO, and DAO votes for key protocol decisions. LandX token takes 60% of the revenue of the platform, and that gets
Okay.
distributed to the token holders. So the protocol lives off fees. So there's a 10% tax on the yield. I haven't mentioned that, but there is a tax on the yield. So when you're claiming your C tokens, uh, we're putting a tax of 10% on that, and that's how the protocol lives. When the farmer gets financing, he pays 3% as well. So there's a substantial amount of revenue that flows into the protocol, but we believe that is offset with all the efficiencies that we deliver. And
Okay.
right,
Quick question though. So those 3 and 10%, is that going for to your team and operation costs so you guys get to continue running the business, or is that going to the Dow Treasury? Where
30% go. Okay, so 30% go into the ops wallet. There's a team and there's some, ops expenses. So that's 30%, and then 60% gets distributed.
Okay. Okay. No, thank you for answering the question. Oh
And,
yeah, I
and,
was
and
curious
and also
because
what
yeah.
we're doing is we're launching LandX Choice. LandX Choice is a LandX, and it it sort of gets about 5% of the protocol revenues to run sustainability and financial inclusion programs around the world and get farmers to become ESG compliant and things like that. So disseminating technology, sharing knowledge about sustainable farming. So there's a lot of activities that will go and be fueled by these 5% of the protocol revenues that we want to sort of, do good stuff with. So there's a part that will go to the token holders, part that will go into the operations, and part that will go into creating a more sort of um, a more sustainable ecologically and also from a soil quality perspective farming practices around the world.
Awesome. Well, let me start with this question because I don't want this conversation to go too much longer because I'd like to talk again once
Yeah.
things are more defined, more in process. So when's the big launch? I see we have some test net up, but when
Okay.
launch?
When launch? Launch is when we when we've done the test. We crashed the front end today. We did something that that is now showing that the C token is worth $200, and we know why because we get an Oracle price and we didn't reflect it correctly on the front end. So there's a few things that we need to sort out before we sort of go live. We need to get audits of our smart contracts. That needs to be nailed, and the community needs to, tested. We have 500 beta testers in 2 days registered for this early access, which was fantastic. And I think that once we announced that everybody has been airdropped a bunch of USDC and Gurley ETH, we're going to see how the platform performs in a sort of simulated environment. We're going to observe that for a few weeks. Then we're starting the audit process. Audit's going to come back with some things probably that we'll need to fix. We'll fix these things. We have a pretty rapid team on the dev side, and so that's going to be addressed. And then we start onboarding um, sort of real um, getting our lands sort of turned into the NFTs and sort of getting these yields. That's going to take probably a few weeks with the pipeline that we have now built, and then we see it in liquidity pools, and then we're announcing launch. So optimistically, end of September, very optimistically. So 1 month from now, that would be a very optimistic scenario, and a bit more realistic scenario is probably would be to say it's going to be Q4 2022. So that's going to sort of take the steam of me for not launching in September. But I try to put so yeah. So I try to put the sort of milestones and deadlines that are a little bit more aggressive. I think that's sort of my style. I don't like the protracted deadlines because you still are doing stuff at always at the last moment. So I prefer to sort of put more aggressive timelines on that, and then probably be a little bit late.
No, I completely understand with that.
Okay.
The one thing I'm excited about, because you guys are also bringing, there's a really bad, like, people dislike NFTs or don't see like the use or anything like with it. Like
Mm.
well, like of course not all NFTs are created equal, but I'm excited because you're bringing like also adding value to not only crypto but like also the NFT ecosystem as well.
Well, I mean,
What
the NFT is a critical component of what we do because there is no other better way to wrap this contract into and give it to the farmer so that he can use it for generating financial um, instrument for himself. And that so it's one of the interesting use cases. I don't think it's been covered. I've seen a couple of posts of use cases of NFTs sort of flowing around the Twitter space, but there hasn't been much that has addressed sort of this particular way of doing it through the NFTs.
Board Ape Corn Club.
There you go. There you go. Not looking really at that sort of stuff. I mean, we're quite um, unimaginative when it comes to sort of trying to create value from air. We're sort of down to earth more. I think for us, it's really about building efficient way to pass that obligation of a farmer to the guy who's investing into the X token and making that in the most easy way so that we can, you know, get, get that, you know, expanded quickly. That's I think what
Right,
is driving us.
right. So, final question. What does perfection look like? It is 2022 right now. In 2027, 5 years,
Tough.
what's perfection look like?
It's probably around 3 million to 5 million hectares of farmland onboarded. Um, so valued. So that will sort of give our net net asset values that are in the ecosystem. If we're at 5 million, that's that's roughly, I don't know, 25-30 billion dollars worth of net asset value. We're the largest um, by then. We're the largest farmland operator basically in the world by a big margin, um, by big margin. Um, the the ownership and the financing of farmland is extremely distributed, so that will allow us to then propel to the next level. That will allow us to then build a lot better economic system for farmland. And there's a lot of stuff that can be done, and we all need to think about a few things. It's not every day that we hear about these things, but the soil is deteriorating. I'm not scaremongering, but there's a real risk that in 20 years we've got nothing to eat. And it's a real problem. It's one of the biggest problems that that we don't know about because we go to the store and we see the shelves are full of food, but that's not how it is. The situation is not good, and the situation needs to be fixed. And I think that what we're doing with exposing this asset class to this sort of light of liquidity that's going to come, into it from initially it will start with with the DeFi, degens, liking the concept, but eventually it will then propagate out to the TradFi.
Bill Gates.
Exactly, all these guys. I mean, I don't know if Bill Gates needs it, but certainly more liquidity to farmland is what everybody wants.
yeah, so you guys are also solving problems for like you guys are solving a lot of problems and not only that bringing value into the space. I really like that.
Thank you.
All right. And any thing you'd like to shill? Where do we find LandX? Where do we get connected?
Sure,
Share with the audience where to find y'all.
sure. So the hub of our sorry, that was my dog. The hub of our community is our Discord channel. So you can go to landx.fi, and there are some links. I believe there's a banner at the top that is driving you to the Discord. We're on Twitter as well. So if you type Landex in the search bar, we're going to pop up. And we're on landx.fi. So, join our Twitter, follow us. We're very active announcing everything we do. We have a couple of guys working on the Medium posts. So we're producing quite a bit of content and trying to get everybody aware of what we're doing and where we're at. So follow us on Twitter and get and join our Discord because there's a lot of stuff going on. We have an early access program now. We just released our Omega Farmer program. We've released our Alpha Farmer, so we've closed our Alpha Farmer program. We started Omega Alpha Farmer program. So there's a lot of opportunities there to get early into the protocol, be part of the community, get into the sort of this sort of completely different way of looking at blockchain as something that connects to real stuff. And I think that's what we want to sort of bring to the folks on chain. So thanks a lot, guys, for having me. It was a pleasure to
Yeah.
it was a pleasure to speak.
And it's exciting to see what you're trying to take on. I can't wait to see where this grows into, pun intended. But once you all launch, whether it's in September or in the fourth quarter, let's circle back and let's have another conversation, because I'd love to see how things are going.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
yeah, have a great day.
Thank you.
Kingmaker Podcast.